Alright guys, so welcome to today's video, and in today's video we will work on this murderer knife right here, okay? And in today's episode we will work on the animation, and we will work on, playing that animation, and if we have enough time left later on, we will, finish the slashing, means we're going to play the animation and we are going to add some damage dealing code to it. Alright, so let's begin with the video. Right click on this tool, insert object, and then select a local script. Okay, now we want to define a variable called UIS, which stands for user input service, and this one is going to refer to the user input service. So user input service. So you might ask what this service is responsible for, and this service right here is going to detect our inputs, our key and mouse inputs, and it also can detect gamepad inputs, by the way. And so you just write UIS.inputBegin, which is an event, and which stands for the event that you have done an input, but you have not ended the input yet, okay? So if you want to detect whether the input has ended, then you have some other events which you can consider, but that's another topic. So input began means, for example, you have started pressing on a key and you have not let go of it. Okay, so the event is that you have started pressing on the key. All right, now the next argument is the input you make, and another thing called GPE. Wait, I forgot to add this function to it. Okay, now this input, hopefully clear to you, that's the input we have done. Okay, so was our input a key? Which key? Or was our input a mouse input? If yes, then which mouse button? Okay, and this GPE right here stands for game processed event, and it basically tells us whether the input was done while interacting with in-game elements such as the GUI, such as chats, for example, or GUIs in general, so your inventory, toolbox, whatsoever. Or was the input actually done outside of that? Means you could have done that by purpose, okay? Because if you write something in your chat, okay, then you come across pressing on a key, which could possibly lead to, I don't know, slashing, you know? But in that moment, you did not intend to press the key in order to slash, but you wanted to, you know, just write a message. And therefore, we need this GP to check whether it is not the case. So if the input was not done while interacting with in-game elements, then we want to see what kind of input this was. So input, user input type, user input type, mouse button 1. Okay, so what does this do? So we basically refer to our input, and dot user input type basically tells us what kind of input type this was. So was it a key, was it a mouse, whatsoever? And yeah, this equals, we are basically comparing this part to this one. We're comparing whether the type was a mouse button 1, means the mouse input at the end. That's the case. So mouse button 1 is our left mouse button. If that's the case, then we want to slash, you know? So yeah, slash. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, we will need to add a remote event inside of this local script, so we can also add this remote event inside of the replicated storage, and then the server script, which I'm going to create in a moment, so we can add this one inside of the server script server, so that's possible as well. But I'm gonna do it this way. Okay, so add a local script, add a script to our local script, and a remote event to our local script. And by to our local script, I basically mean inside of it, okay, as we have it right here. Now, let's define another variable. That's called remote, and this one, it is just going to refer to this remote event. Yeah, let's just keep the name. Okay. So remote event and remote fire server slash. Okay. So what we are basically doing is that if our input was our left mouse button, then we are fire serving this remote event with the argument slash. Okay, so you might ask, okay, why are we fire serving this remote event? Why aren't we like directly creating the animation sort of this local script and applying it to our play whatsoever? Okay, Let me tell you the reason for that, and that is because of this filtering enabled option. So you guys should know in 2022 that there is something called filtering enabled, which prevents the local scripts, basically the client's perspective, from just having or just applying changes for the server. Okay, so you cannot apply changes for the server from a local script. That's not possible. It will only be visible to you, but not for others. Therefore, we will need to use this remote event to communicate to a server script, and then the server script at the end is going to create what we wanted to create. Okay, and you of course need to define what you want to create for which cases, and by which cases I mean that you basically depend. So you basically just fire serve this remote event, and depending on what kind of argument you have put inside of the remote event, you basically create things, okay? And you have to define which argument creates what or results in what code, okay? So that's the idea we have. Now, let's go inside of the script. Script parent remote event. So script parent remote event, okay? Now, remote on server event connect function. Now, player is the first argument. Okay, so this describes the event when this remote event right here has been fire served. Okay, so the first argument, which we automatically get without even putting it inside of here, is the player. Okay, the second one can be any other argument. Okay, depends on you actually. Since we only have this one argument right here, it only makes sense that we put another argument right here, okay? We could also do this, but this would always be empty, so you cannot actually work with it. Therefore, let's just use this one. Okay, so if val is slash, okay, so we are basically checking for the argument. So if the argument is this one, so slash, then we want code which is responsible to create the slash happen down here, okay? If we would have an argument called throw, now from this local script right here, which we will definitely have within this series, then we would have different code, okay? But you need to understand that depending on what kind of argument you have, the code differentiates, okay? So it is always different. Okay, now to the slashing. So local animation instance.new animation. Now we have to define one more thing, which is the player's character. So character, you could do player.character. I have made bad experiences with that. I'm gonna use workspace, wait for child, player character. So it is basically the same. And let me tell you a disadvantage of this one, or let me just explain to you why this is working. So basically every player's character is inside of this workspace, okay? And since the character model has the same name as our player, we can basically look for an instance which has the same name as our player inside of this workspace, okay? Now to the disadvantage, this method will not work when you have multiple instances which have which have a player's name. Means if my name is hello, my character model's name is hello as well. And if I have a block called hello inside of the workspace, then we have two instances which have the same name. Therefore, this line right here could possibly refer to the block instead of the character model. Okay, so that's a disadvantage you have to take care of. Okay, wait, not player character, but player.name. I'm sorry. Okay, so what this line right here does is that we are creating a new instance, which is an animation and which is being put inside of the character. Now, animation.name, let's call it slash if we want to. Now, animation ID, and that's the point where we have to create a slashing animation. So now, that's something you always have to add when you want to enter an animation ID. So after those two slashes, you have to add the actual ID, okay? And we can only receive the ID when we export the animation. And since we haven't done anything yet regarding the animation, we are not able to do that. And I do not think that I'm gonna start creating the animation in today's episode, but I promise you we will create it in the next episode, guys. Okay. Now, one last thing is regarding the animation loader. So creating an animation is not enough. You also need to load the animation and play the animation, or you need to play the loader to be exact. So how does this work? Inside of our character, we have an instance called humanoid. So this humanoid is basically responsible to hold the player's health, the max health, the walk speed, the jump power, whatsoever. Okay, so just some attributes of our character at the end, which makes the character a humanoid. Okay, so that's the important thing about it. And inside of this humanoid, we have one more instance called animator, and we have to refer to this animator, and this animator supports a function called load animation, and this load animation requires an animation as an argument. Okay, so the actual animation instance, so a reference to it, something like this. So we could add this variable to it, and then we have successfully created a loader for this animation, and then we can make the loader play, and we can stop the loader whatsoever. Okay, so let me just demonstrate what I was just describing. So humanoid, wait for child, animator, load animation, animation. There we go, guys. So that's the way and how you do it, and now you can just make this loader play. Okay, since we have no animation ID inside of here, we cannot test this out. And yeah, so that's it for this episode, guys. We could possibly hit play and then see if motive is not a valid member of. Okay, so I have already expected this. Okay, so the issue right here is that we are trying to refer to this remote event too fast. Means this local script is made before this remote event is made. So we are basically trying to refer to something which is not existent. And the difference between the creation time of the local script and of the remote event is of course not that big, but it is big enough to cause this error. Okay. So what do you need to do? You have to add this wait for child to it. So this script right here basically pauses at this point till this, or till it is able to find this certain instance it is looking for. Okay, so let's see if an animation is being created inside of here, and as you can see, we have the slash animation which is being created. Okay, and that's it, guys. So that's it for today's episode. If you have enjoyed it, then please leave a like, subscribe, share it with all of your friends, leave me feedback in the comment section. Take care and see you in the next video.